Welcome. This is a deck profile on Mikanko, an OCG archetype that was revealed earlier today, and like 2 AM in the morning for me. And well, this is the last deck from the Deck Build Pack, and it is a very fascinating one, and one that could definitely become something. And well, it is based around a few main deck monsters and equip spells. Now to start off with, I will go over the monsters. I'm running 3 of every Mikanko monster, as there's only 3 of them total, and they're all good enough to want to run. The main 2 are the effect monsters, Hair, the Sword Mikanko, and Nini, the Mirror Mikanko. Hair is a fire warrior of 0 attack and defense, which is shared across all Mikanko monsters, at least the stat line, while Nini is water spellcaster, and Yume is a light fairy. Now as for Hair, it has 2 effects. The first one, the one it also shares with Nini, is that if it is not equipped with an equipped card, you take no battle damage from battles involving it. If it is equipped with an equipped card, it cannot be destroyed by battle, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving it instead. Now its second effect, which is unique to Hair, is that if it becomes equipped with an equipped card, you can search any Mikanko equipped spell from your deck. And while this is a very powerful effect, that especially gets strong with some of the other Mikanko cards. Next is Nini, who shares the battle damage effect. Its second effect is that during your opponent's turn, while this card is equipped with an equipped card, you can quick effect, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and take control of it until the end phase, which is a nice interruption effect to steal a monster. Next for the ritual monster, Mikanko of the Yume. Now, Yume has 3 effects, and you can only use the first and third once per turn. The first effect is that you can reveal it in your hand, add a Mikanko card from deck to your hand, except for Yume, and then discard 1 card. So it's a very strong effect, basically a Chalice Slime effect, and well, this can search basically anything. Its second effect is that it cannot be destroyed by battle, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would take involving this card instead. Its third effect is that you can quick effect, target one equipped spell card in your graveyard, equip it to an appropriate monster on the field. And this is very relevant that I can equip anywhere on the field. Next, I am running 1 copy of the ritual spell, Mikanko Kagura. Now this is a ritual spell that lets you ritual summon a Mikanko monster by attributing monsters from your hand or field whose levels equal or exceed. Then, you can destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of equipped spells with different names in your graveyard and burn them for 1,000 for each. And well, this is a very strong effect if it goes off that can blitz your opponent's entire field and potentially burn them to death. But I'm running it to set 1 because you only sometimes need it and it's very accessible. Next, I'm running 3 of the field spell, Doorway of the Celestial Mikanko. It also has 3 effects, and its first is that while you control a monster equipped with an equipped card, your opponents must attack them if able. The second effect is that if your Mikanko monster battles, your opponent cannot activate card or effects until the end of the damage step. The third effect is that if your Mikanko monster attacks at the end of the damage step, you can send 1 equipped card you control to the graveyard. That monster can make another attack in a row on a monster, and that's not once per turn. You can keep doing that. And well, considering their burn effects, this field spell can let you just kill your opponent almost immediately if they have high attack monsters. Now, as for the equipped spells. The first one is a Blazing Dance of the Mikanko, which is basically Premature Burial. You just can special summon a Mikanko monster from your hand or graveyard and equip with this card. Then you can special summon 1 monster from your opponent's graveyard to their field, negating its effects, which is a neat effect that can have some usage. But the main thing is that it lets you just reborn a Mikanko or get one out of the hand. And this doesn't target, so DD Crow is pretty awkward against this card if, say, you have 2 Mikankos in your graveyard. They won't know which one you're getting. Its second effect is that the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects. Next up is Purifying Dance of the Mikanko. This also shares the equipped monster cannot be triggered card effects, but this card's effect is that if a monster is special summoned to your opponent's field, you can target one monster you control and one monster your opponent controls and return them to the hand, which is a nice interruption effect that doesn't really, hurt your resources too bad by just bouncing a monster you control. What's also interesting is that this lets you bounce a monster you control that say you stole with Nini's effect, which can double bounce monsters, which can be very useful. And you'll notice a lot of these effects do kind of pile on with each other. Now the last equipped spell is Better Snatch Steal. You can equip it to your opponent's monster, and it can only be equipped to a monster your opponent controls, and you can only activate it once. You can only control one of it, but its effect is that you take control of the equipped monster while you control a Mikanko monster, and the equipped monster cannot activate its effects while you control it. Then if this card leaves the field, you can send the equipped monster to the graveyard. So even if they clear Rondo, they don't get that monster back, it's gone. And so, you can imagine it's a pretty cool effect, especially when you have many ways to equip it on your opponent's turn, such as with Ohime or the Trap card. Next is the Quick Play spell, the Great Mikanko of Legend. This has two effects, and you can only use each of them once per turn. The first effect is that you can special summon one Mikanko monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions, but return it to the hand during your opponent's end phase, so they can summon any of your Mikankos. And this downside isn't too bad, because say you can go ahead and use it alongside Purifying Dance and return it to your hand, pretty much negating the cost of that card. Its second effect is that during your main phase, you can banish it from your graveyard, send one Mikanko card from your deck to the grave, and that's it. And that's a very powerful effect because this deck can definitely make use of graveyard resources, and you can use both of these effects in one turn. The last Mikanko card is Mikanko Catfight. They are a trap card, and you can only use each effect once per turn. If you control a Mikanko monster, you can target one face-up monster on the field, equip it with one appropriate equip spell from your deck. And this is pretty strong because not only can you equip your own, you can equip your opponent's monsters with Rondo to take control of them, which is very powerful. Next, if an equip spell is sent to your graveyard while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish it and add that equip spell from your graveyard to your hand, any of them. So this allows you to recycle your resources. And that's it for the Mikanko monsters. As now you can probably tell, this deck's pretty strong with a decent amount of interruption, tons of recurability, and resources, and interruption that is very abnormal and not usual to deal with. Now as for the rest of the deck, I am running 3 Piri Raise map to search any of the Mikanko monsters, Double Desires as there's no one of that I really need to have, 1 Called By, 3 Triple Attack, and 3 DD Crow. The extra deck is mostly toolbox options such as the rank 3s and rank 6s that you can make, as well as link monsters that are especially useful to make use of monsters you still have Rondo and such. Now as for what this deck can actually do, this is a pretty solid test hand that you can expect to open, consisting of 1 Inviting Rondo of the Mikanko, the Great Mikanko of Legend, 1 Nini the Mirror Mikanko, 1 Mikanko Catfight, and 1 Blazing Dance of the Mikanko. Now to start off with, I will go ahead and activate the Great Mikanko of Legend. This will special summon a Mikanko from my hand. And the reason why I'm doing this is to not only get a Nini on the field, but also to be able to use its second effect to dump a Mikanko to the graveyard. Of course you may ask me, why am I doing this? Well, the reason is because I have Blazing Dance the Mikanko to reborn 1 from my graveyard. So, I will go ahead and activate the Great Mikanko of Legend, and dump from my deck to my graveyard, Hair the Sword Mikanko. So next, I can go ahead and activate the Blazing Dance of the Mikanko. Using this, I will reborn Hair from my graveyard, equipping to it with Blazing Dance. This will trigger Hair's effect to search another equip spell. Using this, I grab Purifying Dance, and go ahead and equip it to Nini. Then I can go ahead and set Mikanko Catfight and pass. Now what this end board actually does is that you'll see Nini the Mirror Mikanko can have an interruption effect to take control of an opponent's monster until the end phase. Purifying Dance allows me to bounce a monster I control and a monster my opponent controls. And Mikanko Catfight allows me to equip a Rondo from deck to the field to steal an opponent's monster. and I can use any of these in combination with each other. Say I can use Nini's effect to take control of a monster, and then afterwards use Purifying Dance's effect to bounce that monster and an opponent's summoned monster to the hand. And well, you can imagine this is a pretty solid end board that I can go ahead and use Catfight, and it's still their monster. And then, if they get rid of one of my Mikankos, I can use a card like Catfight to recycle an equip spell, such as Blazing Dance, which, fun fact, doesn't get rid of the monster that's special summoned or banish itself after it's removed, so you can just keep activating this card every single turn, with no downside or drawback. And these monsters are pretty hard to get rid of because they're immune to destruction by card effects, and they can't destroy by battle, so your opponent has to use non-destruction removal to get rid of them, and they have to do that through quite a few interruptions, and follow-up play. Because on the opponent's turn, say they get rid of, the monster of Rondo, I can take control of an opponent's monster. And the deck can do this pretty consistently, and as the duel goes on, I can eventually, say, summon the ritual monster with ritual spell to wipe their board, and eventually do enough damage by hitting into their monsters to just kill them. Now, as for what I think of the deck, well, it is very impressive for a Wave 1 deck with a deck list that I made in the span of 5 minutes. It has plenty of interruption, it has decent game going second, being able to take control of monsters, a interesting win condition that can definitely be very threatening and annoying to stop because stopping your opponent from just swinging in the battle is not hard or very easy. And well, the deck has lots of flexibility and can be put with a lot of engines. Notably, something like Inferno Bolt can probably do something pretty scary with the deck. And the deck has a decent amount of flex spots. And some of its cards are incredibly strong. I mean, it has more powerful version of Snatch Steal and Premature Barrel in archetype that is searchable that you can keep activating. It has a trap card that lets you use any of your equip spells at any point in time. Its ritual monster lets you to search basically anything, and its ritual spell is basically a board wipe that also burns your opponent. So the deck is very strong and has lots of room for improvement, and additional ways of support will probably make it very scary.